In 1933, Fred Bear created a legacy, pursuing his lifelong passion. Fred's mission was to ensure archery remains accessible to everyone. Here at Bear Archery, we promise to never forget the principles our brands were founded on. From the youngest archer to the oldest, we strive to build bows that give you the best shooting experience. Visit beararchery.com to discover more.
The only shooting stick with one-handed trigger pull adjustments has a new way to keep you at the top of your game. The Trigger Stick Apex. Built for sturdy support that adapts to unforgiving terrain with easy adjustments to make your big shots. With our DuraSteady 3-piece carbon leg design and interchangeable rock-solid clamp, nothing tops the Apex. The Trigger Stick Apex, only from Primrose.
Welcome to the Casting Across Fly Fishing Podcast. I'm Matthew of castingacross.com, where I explore the quarry and culture of fly fishing. I absolutely love the convenience and the eco-friendly nature of catalogs today. That is to say, the majority of them are simply online. Whether they be a company's website or whether they be a brand's PDF that I get an email saying this is now accessible and you can go check things out. I love that. I like that I can have it on my phone. I like how there's interactive elements. I like how there's recommended products under everything. I like how they can go into a lot greater detail online than they can on print. I like that I don't have to throw it away after a few months and have it fill up a landfill or, just burn somewhere in my backyard. But I do miss the day when I would get the Bass Pro Shop catalog that was 1.5 inches thick, knowing that probably in the next week I'd be getting the Cabela's catalog that was probably 1.25 inches thick. And what I would do is I would sit and I would go through them cover to cover. Now, I wouldn't read everything, but it was a little bit of a habit or a tradition for me. Once I got those catalogs, just flip through them real fast. And I can remember it, the Bass Pro Shop, the first few pages were tracker boats, and you got into ads for where all the locations were. And that's where, as a young man, I found out, they're going to put a Bass Pro Shop, close to me. I don't have to fly to Springfield, Missouri or something like that to go to Bass Pro Shop. And just to go through and look at different things and learn more about the outdoors, because at that age, I really didn't have fly fishing tunnel vision. And I don't right now, but I think there was a period in time where I did, probably when I was in my 20s. But I was just into anything and everything outdoors. I wanted the rubber worms, and I wanted the nice hiking boots, and I wanted a tent, and I dreamed about one day having an ATV. And so all of those things were valid, and I'd flip through, and I would see products, and now I like gear, and so there's something to be said for that. But just flipping through and learning all about the different outdoor products. And so what ended up happening is when I went to ask for something for my birthday, for Christmas, or to spend a little bit of my money, I wasn't thinking first and foremost about what's on those 15 or 20 fly fishing pages. I thought, what can I get that I need? And there's a lot of value in that. Now, I think we should support fly shops. I think we should support fly fishing brands. But I think the most important thing for you and for me is that we support ourselves. That might have to do with your specific particular needs, how you fish, where you fish, what you do, what you like. Or that might have to do with your budget. I have no problem spending a little bit more for the exact same product, getting it from a fly shop or from a fly fishing brand. I have no problem if it's a negligible difference, just a couple bucks or 2 or 5% or something like that. I have no problem doing that because I do want to support them. But if that 2 or 5%, if that 10 or 15 bucks is something that you really, really need to be careful with, then absolutely get the off-brand, get the hunting version of it, get whatever. That there's nothing wrong with that. But hopefully from listening to all my podcasts and reading all of my articles, or even just a smattering of them, that I have a lot of respect for the fly fishing industry, for the people that are in it, for the fact that so many people are pouring their hearts and their souls into creating and designing and selling and using these products for us, for a profit, obviously, but for us. So we support them. We support the fly shops, but even fly shops, there's a lot of fly shops that you can go into, and there's going to be something else there. And I think some of the best ones are this way. The best fly shops are the one where you go in and they have the rod rack, they have all the reels, they have the huge fly bins and the big wall of fly tying materials. But there's also some other lifestyle stuff around there. There are some brands that aren't fly fishing brands, but that fly shop owner or somebody who works in that fly shop who's a hiker or maybe who spends a lot of time on a boat just tooling around with his family, they really appreciate having item X or Y on them. And so the fly shop decides to sell that because there's value for their customers and they think that they will be able to sell a couple of them. I think that's great. And I think that fly shops, to survive as we're moving forward, there's going to be some consolidation with other outdoor industry folks, specifically because we're one of the smaller fish in a bigger pond. We need them a lot more than they need us. And I think there's also the potential for great cross-pollination for people who might not be super interested or excited in getting totally decked out and geared out for fly fishing, but they're willing to buy an inexpensive pack rod because they're going to go camping up at a lake somewhere and they'd like to try fly fishing versus, scrounging around for worms on the bank, or, even they just like the romanticism of it more than throwing a spinner. I think there's going to be a great opportunity for that. Or for the person who brings their spouse so that they can buy their boots, and as they're looking around, they say, you know what, I want to give this fly fishing a shot. So there's a little bit of a rant, but I think it just goes to show what I'm talking about today, which is we can look outside of fly fishing to find what we need for fly fishing or to diversify our experience. So I'm going to talk about that in a few different ways. I wrote about this last week and talked about a few different products, but I just wanted to kind of riff on it a little bit, have a little bit of a conversation, and maybe explain it a little bit more. So the first thing that I think that you can do by looking outside of those pages is get some value. And this strikes me the most with clothing. So you're obviously not going to find a fly rod that's not made by a fly fishing company. I'm sure they're out there. I'm sure somebody who makes some sort of graphite product or some sort of fiberglass product has decided, hey, it's no extra work. We're already building these blanks for these companies for us to slap on a couple of components and sell it. I'm sure that's out there. I'm sure that's probably what you see when you find stuff at really weird prices on Amazon or eBay. But by and large, you're going to be buying your value end stuff or your high end stuff from fly fishing brands, from fly fishing companies. And so that's not what we're talking about. But there's other things on the periphery, and clothing is a great example of that. Now, I'll be the first to admit I have a lot of clothes, I have a lot of stuff, and that's just because I want the right tool for the right job. And sometimes a tool is a pair of socks. Sometimes a tool is a long sleeve hooded shirt. And I want exactly what I need for my time outside. That's just something that I feel like is not a huge burden on the space that I have and on my budget. That being said, I get a lot of my clothing that I take on the water from the running section. So I like to run, I like to trail run, and I want to be comfortable when I do that, because it's not just about being a little bit drier or being a bit warmer. It's so that you don't get chafed and you don't get real hot and get like heat rash and stuff like that. I want more endurance, so I don't want to be super super sweaty. So I want to find good stuff that fits me right and that is comfortable. Where do I get that? I know there's options out there in the fly fishing catalog from the fly shops, and I have some of those things. I have some fantastic long sleeve sun protecting bug repellent shirts that I absolutely love. And I'll wear those when I'm gone for like multiple days. But if I'm just going out for the day, I'm probably going to reach into my drawer where my running stuff is. And some of that stuff comes from some of the premier sporting names, but more often than not, it comes from Target. And I get stuff that is a nylon blend, that is wicking, that fits me right, that has the right cut, that that the hemline's long enough, because it's inexpensive, and if I'm going to run in it a lot, everyday running gear, I don't want it to be something too crazy expensive. And I have a lot of success with their stuff. So I get it from there. I get it from the outlet malls. I find it online, whether it be Under Armour or New Balance or something like that. And they're not fly fishing brands, but you know what? The fish do not care. And honestly, I don't think the fish care too much if you're wearing bright colors. I think they care a lot more about your profile that you're presenting and about the movement. But again, that's neither here nor there. So I'll wear that stuff, and I'll wear the ugly stuff, the neon greens and the oranges, just as much as I'll wear the drab colors. But another place where I look is the hunting gear. And this is where, kind of getting back to Bass Pro and Cabela's, I find some of my great warm weather fishing gear for when I'm going after steelhead, for when I am just standing, waist deep in a spring creek in the wintertime. I find clothing in the hunting aisles to be the best stuff, the absolutely best stuff, because a lot of that stuff, is made for guys sitting in tree stands. And that's about as close to, say, steelhead fishing as I can think. I'm not actively walking up and down these stream banks for a prolonged period of time. There's a lot of standing in one spot and drifting, and maybe taking a couple steps after 5 or 10 minutes, but then drifting and drifting. So what are they wearing in the tree stand? What are they wearing someplace where they are totally exposed to the elements for a long period of time? I'm going to find that same stuff and throw it under my waders to keep me warm. And so you find a lot of value that way. Can you get that, $150 fleece bib from the fly fishing company? Yes, and it works great. I have 2 pairs of pants that I fish with a lot. One of them is some Cabela's branded fleece pants that are just bulletproof, and I'll get hot if I move like any faster than a sloth's pace. But they're fantastic. And another pair I have are some Sims ones. They're not as hot as my Cabela's ones, but they were more expensive, but they look good. Like, I could wear them on the water in the wintertime and then go into a restaurant and be totally fine. So, I mean, they both have their purposes, but they both have their ups and downs. So for value, look outside. Look at the off-brand stuff. Go to Marshall's, go to TJ Maxx, see what you can find. Now, I'm not a fan of fishing in like jeans and a hoodie, but if I just have a few hours to kill, I'm going to do it. You'll probably see pictures of me online wearing a dress shirt and khakis, because I honestly don't want to get changed just to fish for half an hour or 45 minutes. So, but when you're trying to find things that are kind of in between that expedition level gear and a few hours of fishing, check out those other stores where you're going to find things that are going to fit right and that are going to fulfill the purposes you need. Moisture wicking, keeping you dry if you were to get rained on a little bit, temperature control, keeping you warm when it's cool out and keeping you cool when it's warm out. And then sun protection. That's another huge one. You can find some really good sun protecting stuff, because that's something that everybody cares about, not just anglers and hikers and people on boats, but everybody cares about keeping the sun off. And if you're anything like me, you absolutely hate applying sunscreen and bug spray. So if you can use some sort of clothing to do that instead of some spray, then go for it. So value, that's the first one. The second thing is finding something that's specialized. And this is kind of my first article years ago that got me exploring this topic. Was I found a pair of shoes that is my totally top tier fly fishing shoe, and it's made by a company called Astral. And I do not get a kickback from them by saying this, but they are by far the best wading shoes I've ever worn. I've tried some of the shoes from the fly fishing companies, and they're good, they're solid, but these Astrals are just the stickiest, lightest, most water repellent shoes I have ever worn in my entire life. And they're made for kayaking. So what do you do when you are moving your kayak from one place to another? You pick the thing up and you're walking on potentially slick or uneven, wet surfaces. So these shoes need to give you enough support that you can walk with your kayak, and then also give you the grip so that you can move on those varied surfaces. Well, that will do exactly what you need to do when you're hopping from rock to rock on a mountain stream or just wet wading in your normal river. So this is a specialized shoe that, in my mind, and they come in all, I have a pair called the Brewers. They've actually updated called the Brewer 2.0. I'd love to give those a whirl, as well as they have some high top versions of them to give you a little more ankle support, which these days is probably would be good for me to give a try also. But they're excellent. They're not my go-to wading boot if I'm fishing all day long, but if I'm running up to the mountains and I need something light, that's what I take. If I'm just kicking around with the kids for a few hours at the local stream, that's what I'm going to wear. I have some awesome rugged wading boots, but these are a specialized product that I feel like just completely dovetails with my needs for a lot of my fishing. But the same thing is with like other tools too. I take trekking poles every once in a while if I am going to be wading somewhere that's precarious. I didn't buy a wading staff. I have trekking poles that work just fine, and they're a lot cheaper. They're not as collapsible as some of the wading staffs, but they get small enough I can strap them to my wading belt, or I can put them in my backpack. Backpacks are another thing. There are a couple good quote-unquote fly fishing backpacks, but I find the best ones are not fly fishing backpacks. I have a backpack made by a company that makes primarily fly fishing stuff, which is Vitavu, but it is a very simple design. It's just a main compartment with a bunch of lash points. And I feel like that is perfect because it fits my needs perfectly. But I have some other backpacks from LL Bean, from Deuter, some other backpack companies that really do a great job of meeting my needs of small gear storage, lots of that's accessible, a lot of room in the back, and then places for me to put rods and put extra spools that are acceptable and that are going to keep them secure as I'm moving through the woods. So those are specialized pieces of gear that I'm not feeling I'm getting my needs met within the fly fishing space, especially for the dollars that I want to spend. So if I can find something that's going to do double duty for me when I'm on the trail, when I'm camping, but then also when I go fishing, then I'd rather spend $200 once than $150 two times on two different products, if that makes sense. So specialized gear that fits your need. Now, this is the same thing that I would say if you have some sort of impairment, disability, if you have something that you need a little bit of help. There's a good chance that those much larger industries have something that is going to fit your needs better. This could be true for sizing issues. This could be true, if you are living someplace where the temperatures and the weather are extreme, you might find something in one of these much larger industries than in fly fishing. And there's nothing discriminatory about that. It's just simply the nature of the beast. You have a larger industry, you're going to have more people feeding into it, and you're going to have more options. So first thing is value. Second thing is specialized stuff. Thirdly is diversifying your experience. And this is, I think, one of the things we don't talk about enough. But it's something we all want to do. I think we all want to do it because fly fishing brands push this image. For every 3 or 4 persons standing in a river or holding a fish, there's at least one hanging out at a tailgate. There's at least one campside fire, shot. We like that. We want that. We enjoy that. That's part of fly fishing. Fly fishing is not just that moment of you stepping in the water and casting. Fly fishing is not just that moment of catching fish. It's everything that's around it. And that's where it bleeds into other outdoor activities. And I think we have to acknowledge that. There's not a lot of fly fishing brands that is going to sell a tent. I don't think there's any fly fishing brands that sell camp chairs. Yeti does, but again, Yeti's not a fly fishing brand, but Yeti is a great example, regardless of what you think about them. They make fantastic products, and I am a convert after being a skeptic. But they have marketed themselves into fly fishing when there's nothing intrinsically fly fishing about it. But they fit in with that whole ethos of just in having quality stuff that you can use on the water or before or after you get on the water. Another thing besides a good cooler that I've found is having a nice sleeping pad. Now, this allows me to sit on the ground or sit on my tailgate and be comfortable. I have it in the back of my car for when I camp or for when the kids and I go and sit somewhere, 'cause I hate sitting on the hard ground. Just to have something like that, a $50 sleeping pad, you're going to find a million uses for. It can be lumbar support. You can put it up against a tree and sit down. But it's more convenient in my mind and more versatile than a camp chair. Similarly, using a grill. So I have this little deal called the Flat Pack from a company called UCO, and it is a very portable grill that has a grate on top. You can use it simply as a fire pit, but what this allows you to do is have a contained fire in places that might have regulations about open fires. So I don't know where you live and what you do, but this way I can have a small fire at the streamside pretty much anywhere, and I'm not endangering the woods. I am not running afoul of most laws. And if I wanted to, in my cooler, I could throw a couple of bratwurst, and I can have a really fantastic afternoon on the water, fish, then eat, and then go and fish again. I'm not having to drive into town to eat a hot meal. So something like that, it's like a diversifying your experience, but also it's a quality of life and a comfort thing. I would say the same thing is true of finding a good tailgate solution or a good back hatch. So I've got a minivan and then I've got this other kind of hybrid hatchback situation. And I have bought little pieces of gear and totes and tubs that fit into those spots that are made for who knows what, whether for tools or for baby gear storage, things like that, but they fit into the vehicle, and I can put fly fishing stuff in it. I can put other things from my car, other things I'm going to use when I'm just hanging out before or after fly fishing, and everything stays out of the way so that when I get groceries, I don't accidentally bring my fishing gear in with me after a day because I've just got it sitting in a bag in the back of my car. So little things like that, they allow you to diversify your experience, streamline your time on the water, a little bit of creature comfort. Now, some people might say that's kind of sissy, like that's not really fly fishing. Well, then that's fine. You do not have to do that. But I like to do that. I like to get on the water first and fast, but then afterwards I like to take my time and unwind, enjoy being by the water. And so anything that I can do then to make things easier and more comfortable, as long as it's not a huge expense, I'm all about it. And again, those things, they diversify your experience, but they also offer a diverse experience. So those are things I end up using with my kids a lot, having those comfort items in the back of my car. So it is a good idea to just see what's out there. See what the aftermarket options for your vehicle are and say, you know what, that particular little hook or that attachment point or that little latch that I can buy, that could really help me when I'm camping out of my car, when I'm fishing, like after a day of fishing. There's a place for me to hang my sling pack or my waders, and it's just a little $5 part I got to order from the car magazine. You never know what you're going to find that could actually really make a difference kind of over the long run. Hopefully this is giving you some food for thought. Find something that can give you some value. Find something that you can really dial in a specialty thing that you do because you now have something. And then also ways to diversify your experience. You might not be as fussy about gear, and I get that, and that's okay. And then, like I said, there's times where I'm out there in my jeans and my cowboy boots, and I will catch fish, and I'll be just as happy as if I'm in my fancy pants and socks and waders and boots and all of that stuff. But over the long haul, like I was saying before, some of these things really do pay off dividends, and they protect your gear, they might protect you, and they might streamline it so that you're getting on the water faster and fishing more. So if you really, really need a pragmatic approach to this, think about it that way. If not, if you don't mind shopping around a little bit and looking to see what's out there, thumbing through every page of that catalog and getting ideas, then I would say go for it. It's not about the stuff, but if you're going to have the stuff that's going to help you enjoy your time on the water and give you more time on the water. Any ideas, any products that you have that really have made your time on the water better, but that aren't from fly fishing brands? Let me know. Matthew@castingacross.com. I would love to hear it. This week on castingacross.com, the first article was called Fly Fishing's Most Important Meal of the Day. I talk about breakfast. So to kind of piggyback off of that last point about a diversified experience, an essential part of my fly fishing experience is stopping to get breakfast. It might be McDonald's drive-thru. It usually isn't a big sit-down breakfast, but having a hot biscuit sandwich and an enormous black coffee is just part and parcel of fly fishing to me. And I just don't want to not have it. And so I talk about that and talk about how there's a lot more to it than just getting food, but it's part of the experience, it's part of the ritual, and the richness that brings to your fishing experience. I also offer up a couple of recommendations on spots. And then Wednesday's article is called Time Flies, 2 Years of the Flyberry Project. So I'm not officially affiliated with the Flyberry Project by any stretch of the imagination, except for the fact that I guess I'm an owner or a sponsor or something of one up in New Hampshire. But this project was started by Larry Luttrell. You might know him from the Taylor Trash Fly Fishing podcast. And he and the guys there put together the Flyberry Project. And you can go to that website and see where they are all over the country. And I just think it's a really cool idea because what it did is it went beyond a hashtag, or it went beyond an idea, and it actually became a tangible thing that people can go out and be a part of, that helps each other, that creates and fosters community. And those phrases usually don't mean a whole lot, but this is an example of where they're actually accomplishing something. So I think it's pretty cool. I think it's worth checking out. Read the article to find out a little bit more. This week's recommendation on the podcast. This is seriously one of the best articles of clothing I have ever owned. And that is hyperbole, but at the same time, it's not. The alpaca fleece hoodie from Appalachian Gear Company is remarkable. It is incredibly soft. It is incredibly warm, yet at the same time it is very breathable. It is a fitted long sleeve shirt that just fits me perfectly, but it's got some stretch to it. So I think it probably, if you get the right size, is going to fit you perfectly as well. They make them for men, they make them for women. There's a hooded version, which I would absolutely recommend, because when you pop that hood over your head, it keeps you warm, but you can hear perfectly, which for me, I detest it when I move my head back and forth and all I hear is the whooshing of my head or my hat or my hair on the inside of my hood. This thing is so lightweight and soft that you can still hear well while you have the hood on, which, I don't know, that's maybe me being paranoid in the woods, but I want to be able to locate the sounds that I hear very, very well. Anyway, the thing keeps you warm when you're wet. I got drizzled on the first few times I wore it, and I was really impressed at how it performed even when slightly damp. It's not an inexpensive garment. It is over $100, but if you want one hoodie that you can wear for a long weekend trip that is going to keep you warm and it's not going to get funky, because the stuff has magical alpaca properties that keep it from getting funky, apparently, this is the one to wear. I'll put a link to the alpaca fleece hoodie on the show notes for this podcast page on castingacross.com. You can check out some pictures of it, as well as a review and last week's post talking about finding gear outside the fly fishing aisle. Thanks for listening to the Casting Across Fly Fishing Podcast. Please subscribe in your favorite podcast app and rate the podcast in iTunes. Then head over to castingacross.com, where you'll find more info on this podcast and 3 posts a week on the people, places, and things that go into the pursuit of fish.
A life that has the stories to back it. A life to be proud of. It's a Winchester life.
Yeah, baby. 6'8" Western. Oh, mule deer, baby, right there.
Tune in every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern on Waypoint TV.